Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Inshallah, we're going to get started as people come in. Inshallah. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Okay. Alaikum salam. MashaAllah. Wa alaikum salam. MashaAllah. Good to see you guys. Hope you guys had a good first day of fasting. Inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala accept from everybody. May Allah accept from all of us. We'll get started. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. MashaAllah, Ibn Abi Tariq is in the house. Everybody's in the house. MashaAllah, it's good seeing everybody. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. What a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's brought us into this month of Ramadan, and we have this opportunity to reconnect with Him in this beautiful, beautiful way, in this beautiful, beautiful month. We ask Allah ta'ala that He accepts from all of us and He makes it easy for all of us, inshallah. So we're going to get started. As you know, that this series we're going to be continuing every day throughout the month of Ramadan at 7 o'clock on my page. So tonight I just wanted to kick it off just because it's my page, so I felt like I have a home court advantage here. But inshallah in the future, every day we're going to be switching off between myself, Muhammad Suleiman, who many of you guys know, Ammar Al-Quqa as well, someone that you guys should be very familiar with locally in the community, and of course Tariq Tamr, mashallah, the Twitter celebrity, Ibn Abi Tariq. I feel like I should, he probably does, earns like residuals every time I mention his name or mention his handle. So, all of us, inshallah, will be rotating. All of us will be rotating throughout. You can leave those open. Yeah. We're going to be rotating, inshallah, throughout the month of Ramadan. So it's, I'm really looking forward to it. And of course, as we've mentioned already, the whole point of this series is we're going to be going through the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not completely, not in complete order. We're going to be going in order, but we're not going to be going through, it's not going to be an exhaustive series where we're going to be going through every single detail about the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously, that's something that deserves much more than just an Instagram series during the month of Ramadan. But inshallah, we're hoping to cover bits and pieces from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And specifically, we're going to focus on some events and then, flesh those events out and find lessons and reflections that are really relevant to us in our lives today. So we figured, if we're going to start speaking about the Prophet ﷺ, let's speak at the beginning. Let's start at the very beginning. And what's really important to know is that, when we start speaking about the Prophet ﷺ in the beginning, it's not, when we speak about the beginning of the Prophet ﷺ, it's not with the day that he was born. What's very interesting is that the vast majority of books that are compiled on the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and if you've ever listened to another series about the life of the Prophet ﷺ, you'll find that the beginning is not at the day that the Prophet ﷺ was born. It actually begins much, much, much before that. Thousands of years before that, in fact. Right? And what's very interesting is that the Prophet ﷺ, when he speaks about his own beginning, he doesn't attribute it to himself, right? Like if we were to be asked by somebody, what made you who you are, right? If I were to be asked, what made me who I am? And if one of us were to be asked, what made us who we are? We would often attribute it to ourselves. We'd say, I worked hard and I went to this school and I did this and I worked at this job and I earned this much money and I bought this house and I did this, I did that. We'd attribute it a lot to ourselves. But what was very interesting is that the Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke about himself, right, what made him who he was, he didn't attribute it to himself. He actually attributed it to people that came before him. There's a famous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that I am the result of the dua of my father, Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? His great-great-great-great-grandfather, because we know that the Prophet ﷺ, his blood, his lineage, actually traces all the way back to the Prophet Ibrahim, the Prophet Abraham alayhi salam. The Prophet ﷺ, he would attribute himself, whatever he had, not just to himself, but to the people that came before him and the people that sacrificed for him so he could have what he has. And that's really important for us to know right off the bat, that, you and I, we don't come from a vacuum. What you and I have, what you and I benefit from, It didn't just come from us or our own effort. There are people that came so far before us that sacrificed so we can be who we are today. Something as simple as our iman, our deen. Just statistically speaking, the majority of the people that I'm sure that are tuning into this right now, I'm sure that many of you, if not all of you, were most likely born Muslim. And if we were born Muslim, what does that mean? That means that our Islam isn't something that we necessarily did anything to earn or deserve. That Islam is something that came from us because someone before us sacrificed. Someone all the way up our lineage, they bit the bullet, as they say, right? They were the first person to accept Islam, and because of their shahada, their progeny, including us, that happen to be Muslim today. So we should think about these things. Even the comforts that you and I enjoy, right? The fact that we're able to, be in the United States of America and enjoy a lot of the freedoms and privileges that we enjoy. This isn't random. It's because people before us made sacrifices to come here. People before us made sacrifices, and that's what made us who we are. So that's a really important lesson we need to understand right off the bat about the Prophet ﷺ. He would recognize that he didn't just come from a vacuum. Whatever he has, right? And imagine, who are we speaking about here? The best of creation, the Prophet ﷺ. He himself would be humble enough to admit that I didn't do this on my own. I didn't make myself. It was people before me that made me. So we should reflect on this, right? And this is a time when we're at home and we're able to be with our families. We should really appreciate our families, appreciate being around our parents, being around perhaps our grandparents, or at the very least being able to stay in touch with them, whether if they're in our homes or at the very least, we should be FaceTiming them and calling them and communicating with them and really appreciate the sacrifices people before us made. Now, based on that, today we wanted to cover a little bit about who the Prophet ﷺ attributes himself to, meaning that the Prophet ﷺ said that I am the result of the dua of my father, Ibrahim a.s. And Ibrahim a.s. is somebody, we could speak about him for a whole series, right? But there's something really important when we think about, Ibrahim a.s. One of the words that's used to describe Ibrahim is father, right? In this country even, people call Abraham the father of monotheism. Right? Because Ibrahim a.s., one of the things that, one of the qualities of his that stands out when you think of him is that he was like a father figure, right? And what's really important about Ibrahim a.s. is he was extremely family oriented. And we see this throughout his life. And there's three main incidents that I just want to touch on very briefly that really reflect how Ibrahim a.s. invested in his family. We know that one of the most difficult sacrifices anyone has ever had to make, and especially Ibrahim a.s., one of the most difficult sacrifices that he had to make in his life was what? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Ibrahim a.s. to leave his family in Mecca. Remember, Ibrahim was from Palestine. He was from Palestine. He was commanded by Allah to take his wife, right? His wife Hajar alayhi salam, and his son Ismail. Now, there's a lot of context and background here. We don't have time to get into all of it. But just briefly, it's very important to know that Ibrahim alayhi salam had been trying for years and years and years to have a child. And he wasn't able to do it. And that's really difficult, for anyone that's ever tried to have a child. If there's a couple that have been trying to have kids and they haven't been able to conceive, that's not easy. It's very, very difficult, right? It takes a toll on a couple. It takes a toll on a mother or father. Ibrahim a.s. had been trying for years to have a child. He wasn't able to. And finally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a child, Ismail, his first baby boy, through Hajar alayhi salam. And immediately Allah tests him by commanding him, take your wife and take your child and leave them in a barren valley of Mecca. At that time, Mecca wasn't popping the way it is today. Mecca was a completely barren desert valley. And he was commanded to leave them there. And Ibrahim a.s. did. He obeyed the command of Allah and he left his baby boy and his wife Hajar in the middle of the valley of Mecca. And as Ibrahim was leaving, because he had to leave, right? He left, but he turned around and he made dua to Allah, right? He faced the area that the Kaaba was, right? At that time, the Kaaba wasn't built yet, but Ibrahim faced in that direction, the Qibla, and he made dua to Allah. And the dua that he made was such a heartfelt dua. And what was that dua? The dua it's a beautiful dua that we can recite in Arabic. But there's a couple main things that Ibrahim a.s. focused on. He says, Rabbi inni askantu min dhurriyati biwadin ghayri dhi zar'in inda baytika al-muharram rabbana liyuqim as-salah. So basically, what is Ibrahim saying? That, oh Allah, I've done what you told me to do. I have left my family as you commanded me in the middle of this desert. And there's nothing here. There is nothing, there's no fruit, there's no food, there's no water, there are no animals. It's nothing. It's barren. Oh Allah, I've done this for you. So I have hope in you, oh Allah. And what were the hopes that Ibrahim had? Now imagine you're a father, or you're, whatever. You have family. You have a close friend that you are leaving behind in the middle of a barren valley, a barren desert, right? You have someone that you love that is in a very difficult position, right? They're being put into a position where they're not going to be able to perhaps provide for themselves. What is perhaps the first dua that we would make for that person, right? We make dua that, oh Allah, keep them healthy. Oh Allah, grant them fruit, grant them drink, grant them food, grant them some nourishment so they can be physically healthy and take care of themselves. Ibrahim alayhi salam made that dua, but that wasn't the first thing he asked for. It's so amazing. It's so profound. Ibrahim alayhi salam, in this moment, when Ibrahim alayhi salam, in this moment, he's left his family in the middle of a desert, okay? In the middle of a desert. And he could make dua for anything for them. The first thing he thinks of, the first thing that comes into the heart of this father is what? That, oh Allah, liyuqimus salah. Make them people that will worship you. That is what I'm most concerned about. I'm concerned. And then he continues. He makes dua as well. That, oh Allah, grant them community that will love them. And grant them food and water so they can be nourished and so they can thank you. Ibrahim makes dua for all of those things. He makes dua for their material and physical health. He makes dua for their social health, making sure they have community. And obviously right now we know the value of having community. That's why we're doing this. Because we know that as human beings, we're social people and we rely on one another, right? For community. But the first thing that comes to Ibrahim alayhi salam's heart about his family is what? Ya Allah, make them people that will worship you. Ya Allah, the most concern that I have about my family is not even that whether they will eat or whether they will drink, right? Whether they'll starve or, obviously he has that concern. He makes that dua. But the first dua that he makes is what? Oh Allah, make them people that will worship you. Oh Allah, make them spiritually healthy. Even more important than their social health and their physical health. Obviously, these things are important. But at the end of the day, right, our spiritual health, our relationship with Allah is the thing that will change not just our life in this life, it will change our eternity. It has an impact on our eternity. So obviously, what we're learning here is we should care about that for ourselves. That even more than what we have physically, even more than what we have socially, we should always remember that my health primarily, when I think of, how to manage my health, primarily I need to learn to take care of my spiritual health. And that's what Ramadan is all about. Ramadan is all about reestablishing spiritual health. And this month, we, all the things we think bring us happiness and bring us contentment, food and water and all these kinds of things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, leave those things. Don't focus on those things. And instead focus on your heart. Focus on remembering Allah, reading the Quran, praying salah. And what do we find every year in the month of Ramadan? We feel better. We feel spiritually uplifted and holistically we feel uplifted. Why? Because there's value in that. The most important part of who we are as human beings is our spiritual health. But also what is Ibrahim alayhi salam teaching us here? He's teaching us that we also need to be mindful of our family's spiritual health. That our concern for our families shouldn't just be how they are materially, how they are physically, right? Obviously, right now we're really concerned for our family members, and as we should be, because this is it's a tough situation. In ways, it's kind of an alarming situation, right? I'm sure a lot of us have concern about our parents and our grandparents and other family members. We have this yearning in our heart toward Allah Ta'ala that, oh Allah, please take care of my parents. Please take care of my family. Please take care of my loved ones. We're all feeling that kind of right now, right? With this whole coronavirus situation. But what's important for us to kind of reflect on here is that, we are so concerned about our family's physical health, as we should be. We always should be. But, when's the last time we were concerned about our family members' spiritual health? Right? When's the last time we saw, we made dua for our family members, not just for, oh Allah, grant them health and grant them long lives. We always do that. No one needs to tell us, right? No one needs to give us a reminder that you should make dua for your family members and for your loved ones' physical health. We do that. We do that just fine. But when's the last time we made dua for their spiritual health? Right? When's the last time we made dua for our siblings that, oh Allah, make them righteous people. Oh Allah, make my brother and sister people that pray their prayers on time. Oh Allah, make my parents people who are already, our parents, mashallah, I'm sure they're already very close to Allah. But oh Allah, make them even closer to you. Make them people that are beloved to you. Right? These are du'as we should also make. And this is an opportunity. In the month of Ramadan, when we're with our family members, we should think about our family members' spiritual health, right? there's a couple other incidents that happened in the life of Ibrahim that really reflect this concept of family. The second thing that's very, very important is that later on, after Ibrahim alayhi salam has to abandon his family, he returns. He's commanded by Allah to return to Ismail alayhi salam, right? And why is he commanded to return? Because in his dream, we know, this is a very famous story that especially we cover during the time of Eid al-Adha. But Ibrahim alayhi salam has this dream where he is commanded by Allah and he is slaughtering Ismail. And we know that the dreams of the prophets are true. So what does Ibrahim do? Ibrahim is now commanded by Allah in his dream to slaughter his son. The same son that he's already had to abandon. Now Allah is commanding him to sacrifice him, to slaughter him. I mean, how much more difficult of a situation could this be for Ibrahim? Now, look, Ibrahim is a prophet though, right? He's a prophet of Allah. He's not going to disobey Allah. So, I mean, what would Ibrahim do? If you were a prophet and Allah subhanahu, obviously we're not prophets, this is hypothetical, right? But if a person's a prophet of Allah, right? And they're commanded by Allah to go and do something, do they need to consult anybody about it, right? No. Right? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to do something, you do it. You don't ask other people what they think. That's not becoming of a prophet. A prophet does what they're commanded to do. But what do we see here? Ibrahim alayhi salam is commanded by Allah in his dream to, now you have to go and sacrifice your son. What does Ibrahim do? He goes to his son Ismail, who's a young boy at this time. He goes to him and he asks him his opinion on this. He says, look, my son, I've had a dream where I'm sacrificing you. Right? And obviously Ibrahim knows this is a command. But what does he do? He speaks to Ismail, his son, and asks him, what do you think? Right? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings about this? Right? Because Ibrahim alayhi salam, he look, this situation is a two-way situation. It's not just about him. It's about his family. It's about his son. This is obviously directly impacting his son. So he wants to make sure that his feelings are validated about this as well. He communicates, meaning, right? He's not just a father who doesn't communicate with his family members, right? But he's a father who turns to his family and says, what do you think about this situation that's going to impact you? And Ismail is such an amazing son that what does he tell his father? That, oh, my father, do what you've been commanded by Allah. I'm going to be patient. But what's the lesson that we learn here? The lesson that we learn is what? We need to be people that communicate with one another as family, right? I mean, oftentimes, a lot of times, family conflict is something that happens in every family. Everybody has it. I've had it. I'm sure you've had it. Every person listening at some point has had some kind of conflict in their family. More often than not, just from my experience, this is anecdotal, more often than not, 99% of the time, the conflict that happens in family, it happens because of a lack of communication. We don't communicate with one another properly. We don't ask the other person how they're feeling about something. We don't empathize. We don't listen. Oftentimes, we just want to be the ones that talk, the ones that express ourselves, that this is what I think, this is what I think, this is what I think. But very rarely do we go to our family members. It's very easy to do this with strangers, by the way. It's very easy. It's very easy to go to your coworker or go to your boss or go to someone like that, right? Go to some random person and, listen to them and empathize with them. That's easy. But you know what's difficult? It's going to your family members and communicating and asking them, what do you think about this, right? It's very difficult. It's very easy to apologize to random people, right? If you accidentally bump into somebody, right, when you're walking in the grocery store, which I mean, you should be careful, social distancing right now, right? But let's say you bump into somebody. It's very easy to apologize to them, right? But when you're at home and you bump into your sibling, we don't apologize. No one apologizes. In fact, we just start yelling at each other. It turns into a shouting match. All this conflict, the vast majority of conflict that comes in family, it comes from not communicating, right? We're not communicating properly. Ibrahim alayhi salam teaches us the importance of communication, making sure we're being patient with our family members. We are talking to our family members. We're listening to our family members. That what do they have to say? Especially those family members that are, in positions that are, quote unquote, lower than us, meaning like our younger siblings, our cousins, things like that. We need to make sure that we're having open lines of communication with family. That's extremely important. And especially right now in the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan is a time of mercy and forgiveness. And a big part of that mercy and forgiveness is what? Is mercy and forgiveness between one another. And obviously with this, we focus a lot on, like friends. So I'm sure everybody the last day has gotten those, please forgive me text messages and those please forgive me phone calls and you've seen those please forgive me stories, right? Everyone's been seeing that, right? But when's the last time that we actually went to our sibling and said, hey, I'm sorry about that thing that happened, right? 2 months ago, right? When's the last time we actually went to our family members, our parents, and asked them to forgive us or spoken to them about conflict that we have? That's very difficult, but it's very important. And this is a time, right? This time that we have in this stay-at-home situation, this is a time where we can really repair these relationships with our family members that throughout the year we're often too busy to repair, right? It's actually a big blessing that we're, quote unquote, stuck with our family members. This is an opportunity for us to repair these relationships, especially in the month of Ramadan, right? And the last thing I just want to mention, I know I've gone over, this was supposed to be about 5 or 10 minutes, but we went a little bit over. But the last thing I want to mention here is what? The Ibrahim alayhi salam, after the situation where obviously, and we know what happens, right? Allah Ta'ala replaces Ismail with an animal, and it's a happily ever after situation. We know, and we speak about it during Eid al-Adha. It's a beautiful miracle of Allah Ta'ala. But Ibrahim alayhi salam returns again to Mecca, right? He returns many years after this, right? To do what? Allah Ta'ala commands Ibrahim to return again to the Kaaba, or to Mecca, to now do what? To build the Kaaba with his son Ismail, right? So what does Ibrahim do now? Him and his son, as a family, they engage in this amazing act of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They go and they build, they literally, it comes in the Quran, إِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ, that Ibrahim, right, alayhi salam, was commanded by Allah with his family to build the foundations of the Kaaba. Right? So that's what Ibrahim alayhi salam does with his family. He engages in this amazing act of worship with his family. And what does this do? It's very beautiful here that Allah Ta'ala uses the word qawa'id, right? The foundations. Why? Because Ibrahim and Ismail, they're building the foundations of the Kaaba. Obviously a structure that believers until the end of time are going to benefit from. And Ibrahim and Ismail and their family, they're going to get the reward for it. But foundation is such a beautiful word here, because what else are Ibrahim and Ismail doing? Not only are they building foundations spiritually for the ummah, but they're also building a foundation of their family. That our family, the foundation of our family is what? It's the worship of Allah. Right? And that's obviously, a family like that will have the results that they had. And from that family, many generations later, came the Prophet ﷺ, right? And he came from a family that had a foundation of the pleasure of Allah and the worship of Allah. What do we learn here? That, a lot of us are really, some of us are feeling a little bit down. And that's valid. We're all feeling down, right? Because Ramadan is a time where we should be in the masjid. It's a time when normally we think about the masjid. And we feel like our hearts and our, physically we should be in the masjid. But this month, obviously, we're not going to be able to most likely engage with the masjid. And that's something that's really kind of hurting our hearts, and that's valid, right? Those are valid feelings. But we should also keep in mind that this is an opportunity, right? This opportunity we have to be at home is what? It's an opportunity for us to build a foundation at home. Oftentimes, like I mentioned, we don't communicate with our families. We don't spend enough time with our families. And especially when it comes to worship, we don't do it with our families, right? We just go to the masjid, do it by ourselves if we're lucky, or we just do it by ourselves in our room. But this is an opportunity these days, right? The Taraweeh prayer and all these things. It's an opportunity for us to build a foundation at home. Last night I was praying Taraweeh with my family. And normally, obviously, we go to the masjid and we pray Taraweeh. So it's very, it feels a little bit different for me to be at home and praying Taraweeh. And in this situation, right, I'm praying Taraweeh, just me and my wife, right? My baby son's not old enough, obviously, to pray with us or to lead the prayer. So it's just me and my wife. And when I first started, we're trying to pray our broken up 20 rak'ah, whatever. It's not like I'm not a hafiz or anything like that. So it's just like, here and there, bits and pieces of different parts of the Quran that I'm trying to recite and just trying to, put something together for my family. And at the beginning, I was thinking, oh my God, right? Like, this is such a burden. This is like, how am I going to do this for 30 straight nights, lead 20 rak'ah, just me and my wife? I barely know any Quran to do it with, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking. But then by the end, after we actually finished the 20 rak'ah, and after we finished with her, I was thinking, alhamdulillah, what a blessing that, normally me and my wife don't have this opportunity to pray this many rak'ah together. And then, inshallah, this year, we're going to have an opportunity to do that every night. This is an opportunity to build a foundation. And inshallah, I felt the barakah. And I'm sure you guys did as well last night. You all probably, when you prayed with your family's Taraweeh, you felt that vibe in your home that maybe wasn't there before. That's a big blessing of Allah. We have this opportunity this month to build this foundation in our homes. That our homes now, in the past, maybe our homes were about other things. Our homes were about entertainment. Our homes were about, conflict and fighting or whatever it happened to be. This month, we have an opportunity to reestablish the foundation of our homes and make that foundation a foundation of the worship of Allah. This is a big opportunity. We should look at this as a big silver lining, that we have this opportunity to reconnect with our families and build these bonds with our families. So just to recap, right? We should make sure that obviously we establish the foundation of our homes with the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should make sure that we are communicating with our families as much as we can. And especially if there's been conflict in the past, this is the time to resolve that conflict. During the month of Ramadan, while we're at home, have honest conversations, listen to one another, empathize with one another, validate one another, and repair those bonds that perhaps were broken in the past. And of course, our primary concern when it comes to ourselves and our families, above material health, physical health, social health, spiritual health, right? We should be concerned about our own spiritual health and of course the spiritual health of our families. And we should try our best to build build our family members' spiritual health up. We should be means that our family uses to connect themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a beautiful opportunity to do this in the month of Ramadan. I appreciate all of you guys joining me. And, we tried to keep it 5 or 10 minutes, and Tariq right now is in the group chat, busting me up, telling me, Khoram, you said this is going to be 5 or 10 minutes and you just went 20 minutes straight, 25 minutes straight. And you guys know sometimes I like to, get into a little bit of detail. But, really, I just want this to be an opportunity where we connect and we reflect, and we still kind of feel that vibe a little bit of maybe being in the masjid and getting that reminder. So I'm sorry I went a little bit over, but I feel like it's worth it. What else are we doing at home? So maybe we might go a little bit over depending on. No, Tariq, my notifications are on, bro, and I'm reading everything you're saying right now, and you're hurting my feelings. So I expect an apology text from you. And I'm gonna consider whether or not I'm gonna accept that apology. I'm just joking. Yeah. So hope everybody's doing well. Alhamdulillah. Half an hour. So yeah, people are okay. Alhamdulillah, great. I'm glad people are benefiting from it. So we'll see. Obviously I don't want it to be too much of a burden. But just tune in. 7:00. Tune in. We'll see what happens. If you have to tune out. You gotta do what you gotta do. But just tune in every day, inshallah. And we'll see you 7:00. So inshallah tomorrow it won't be myself. I'll be listening as best as I can. But tomorrow we're gonna have one of our other hosts, brother Ahmad Al Kuka, right, who we all know and we all love, and one of our favorite people in Michigan. Ahmad will be here tomorrow at 7:00 on my Instagram page. He'll be taking over. So make sure you guys tune in then. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Keep us in your du'as, and just one last thing, right? Obviously, we know that this time right before Maghrib. So we have about 1 hour left before Maghrib. This time is a time where we should spend in ibadah. We should spend in worship, and definitely we should spend in making du'a, right? We should spend in making du'a. That especially those few moments before Maghrib, make du'a. So make du'a for yourselves, make du'a for your family members, make du'a for your boy, right? Make du'a for one another. And inshallah, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.